Welcome to Johns Island City Park. Let's check out Numbers 31 and 2 together. Numbers 31 documents Moses' last military campaign, in which Moses asks for 1,000 armed men from each tribe and sends these 12,000 to execute the Lord's judgment against the Midianites. It's worth remembering that the Midianites are those that hired Balaam, son of Peor, to curse the Israelites, and the Lord kept them from doing that through a talking donkey. But we learn later in the passage that Balaam had a plan B for the Midianites. Plan B was to have the Midianite women seduce the Israelites into committing sexual immorality and worshiping Baal and false idols. It's earlier in Numbers. It resulted in a plague that was ended when Phinehas goes and impales a offending Israelite and his concubine. In light of all this disobedience and causing the Lord's people to sin, that the Lord asked Moses to execute vengeance. And so they go, they kill all the men, they destroy the peoples, they burn the towns, they overthrow kings, but they take a lot of plunder, including women and children. When Moses sees that they've allowed the women to live, he reminds them of their history, that these were the very women that tempted them to sin. These women are no innocent bystanders in this situation. Moses therefore instructs them to kill all the women and all the male children, leaving only the young women among their plunder. This sounds really disturbing to our modern ears. There's some things to keep in mind. One, this is the Lord's vengeance on a people who sought to overthrow the Lord's people by causing them to sin. We see a similar disturbing scene when Saul refuses to commit a nation to destruction. Even Jesus talks about those who would cause his children, his little ones, to sin in disturbing tones, saying it would be better if they tied a millstone around their neck. Ultimately, we know that all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. And so that any of us are living is a grace of God. For him to order the destruction is justice. With all that done, Eleazar gives them the process by which they're to be cleansed from touching a dead person. And it involves cleansing on the third and seventh days. They didn't provide instructions for taking the plunder and dividing it between those who went to war and those who stayed behind, between the Levites and the high priest. Finally, the commanders take count, and they've lost not a single soldier in the war. And so they take the plunder and they bring a tribute and a memorial offering to the Lord that works out to about 400 pounds of gold and other trinkets. This is a hard passage. Where's Jesus in it? Well, I think Jesus takes the purity of his people pretty seriously. It matters to the Lord. We also know that the Lord's judgments are right, even though they're hard. This is the next generation, too, so the Lord is using this as an opportunity to teach the new generation war. which I think is a part of the reason we continue to have indwelling sin in our own lives, is that as we put it to death, we're learning to trust in the Lord more. Ultimately, I find Numbers 31 hard, but the last thing I can do is apologize for it. It is right and good, even if I don't particularly like it. Honestly, the fact that I don't like it probably means that I need to spend more time with passages like this, learning to hate sin, learning to feel the way God does about those who would cause others to sin. Let's rejoice in the Lord's words more and more. He's saved us from much worse. See you next time.